Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Virtual Global Leadership Podcast. In today's episode, we'll be diving into the world of corporate governance, scaling startups, and the power of mentoring with a very special guest, Divya Momaya. Divya isn't just any expert. She's a distinguished fellow member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India and holds a Bachelor of Commerce. With over 22 years of rich experiences under her belt, including 16 years of practicing company secretary, Divya has carved a niche for herself in the realms of corporate and secretarial laws, corporate governance, and business development. Divya's passion doesn't stop there. She's the driving force behind Mentormind Board, an innovative initiative aimed at training and grooming a wide spectrum of directors, from promoted directors and independent directors to women directors and startup directors. Her goal to empower and build a robust community of 1 lakh directors by 2027. Divya's expertise and influence extend to the boardrooms of some of the most prestigious firms, serving as an independent director on the board of Motilal Oswal Financial Services, GTPL Hathway, and Blue Jet Healthcare Limited. Her mission is to elevate corporate governance, compliance, and leadership standards across the board, providing invaluable insight to corporate business leaders and entrepreneurs. But Divya's talent doesn't end there. She's also an accomplished author. Her book on relationships, Coming Home to In laws, which is available on Kindle and Amazon, offers profound insights into the dynamics of family relationships, showcasing her versatility and depth of understanding in both professional and personal realms. Join us as we explore Divya's journey, her transformative impact on business and directors alike, and her invaluable advice for scaling startups, enhancing corporate governance, and mastering the art of leadership. Get ready for an engaging, enlightening, and utterly inspiring conversation. Welcome to the show, Divya. How are you?
Thank you so much, Sagar, for inviting on this platform. And I'm great, wonderful. Thank you.
So, Divya, where do you see what is the future of work? This is one question that I ask. Where do you see we are evolving as a country? Work with respect to, of course, compliance and corporate governance.
So, thank you so much, Sagar, for this question. And I'll tell you, today we are in a very, very highly regulatory oversight, kind of environment where, earlier there were days where, people used to have, duplicate balance sheets, two different balance sheets, three different balance sheets. But now, you go and check income tax, site and GST site, your turnover has to match your Ministry of Corporate Affairs, the balance sheets which are filing, the banks are asking for those, financial statements, and then only they are disbursing the loan amounts. So overall regulatory oversight has increased a lot, and with the regulatory oversight increasing, with the compliance being given a lot of focus, I think it's a kind of a high time that corporates become good corporate citizens. And once they become good corporate citizens, definitely the growth and the prosperity comes to them. So I think that's what good governance is all about.
What are some of the skills that make someone a good corporate citizens, or let's say observations or knowledge?
Um, so when you talk of the corporate citizen, I mean definitely corporate consists of the directors or even the employees, the stakeholders. So it's a complete stakeholders relationship what the company has to maintain to create that the aura of corporate citizenship. Now today the initiatives like ESG, environment sustainability, even the initiatives like CSR, corporate social responsibility. Sorry, I think these are the initiatives which are kind of, to some extent forcing corporates to uh, create that wider impact with whatever profits they're generating. And even, when we really look at the people profit and, the planet. So, today, a lot of companies, are putting the planet before the profitability. So I think once, these kind of wider purposes come in, your skill sets to tune those purposes automatically comes in for the promoters and founders basically. Now when we really talk of the very very clear skill sets, number one, governance acumen, business acumen, These are broad skill sets which are definitely required. The ethical values, which also becomes very very important for leaders. And I'm really here not talking only of the board leaders, but also one level below the one the boardrooms. That's the senior management, and kind of a collaborative skill set is very very important in today's world, especially when we really look at the skill sets like negotiation skills, even your financial acumen or financial literacy skills, financial skills basically, they become very very important for the leaders to kind of imbibe and move towards the growth. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, creating a virtual community of 1 lakh uh, directors is a quite an ambitious task and ambitious project in itself. So, what is keeping you, motivated to build this?
Okay. So, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, the purpose, to create good governance, in the country, and definitely there are good corporates existing. But when we really look at, or I always speak about the statistics in all my conversations. So there are close to around 4,000, 4,500 listed companies, where we talk of good governance, corporate governance. But India has more than 7 crore businesses, right? And how those businesses can scale with good governance is something where we as Mentor My Board are focusing and working on. That because India is going to see massive corporatization in years ahead. So today we have close to around 15 lakh odd corporates, and I think 8 lakhs might be the active corporates, uh, which run their businesses in a private limited or a public limited structures or even listed structures. But the way those 7 crore businesses, so even if you take close to around 10% of that, so 70 odd lakh businesses can have the potential to get migrated to the corporate structures. And that's where once they become corporates, the corporate governance is at the core, and how those directors can be trained, nurtured, mentored for that growth, for that mindset shift, and even for doing businesses with highest ethical standards. I'm not saying that businesses don't do, the promoters and the founders don't do that with the ethical standards, but what I'm talking of is the highest ethical standards, number one, and also kind of a use of collective wisdom. I mean, I have been also speaking on a lot of startup forums, and whenever I speak, or I take the poll, how many of you have advisory boards? So a lot
Hmm.
of businesses, a lot of founders, or a lot of MSMEs also, they run their businesses in the solopreneurship, right? So me myself, I am the only one who can take decisions. But the
Hmm.
growth, real business growth, comes in when you have the right structures at the top. It's a power of
Hmm.
collective wisdom, what comes in. So I think when we really talk of 100,000 directors, we really want to create an impact for the boardrooms, where these directors are going to be either they're promoters, founders, or even independent directors or women directors. So how are they going to be effective in the boardrooms? And then creating a community where they learn together, when they upskill together, where they also network together and create opportunities for each other, and then ultimately grow together. So I think that's the entire vision, which kind of motivates me to take this journey forward.
So, Divya, at the moment, what steps Mentorman Board is taking to enable this and serve the community?
Okay. So, if I really talk of the initiatives, I think the most powerful initiative, I think our journey started. I mean, let me, kind of give you a brief background as to our journey, how it started. And I mean, last, I think, 4.5 years, you have been witnessing our journey for, that time. When we started, kind of because it was just the idea, thought, but lockdown really gave wings to it. We got time to kind of create the platform, the technology, because sitting in Mumbai, you can't reach out to not many people across India. But I think with the technology, we were able to kind of create a platform where we have today members across the countries, like cities like Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Ahmedabad, Pune, Faridabad, and across. I mean, I'll tell you, even smaller cities like Nasik, have the members, for Mentor My Board. So initiatives, when we really talk of, the one and most powerful initiative what we took, and that actually became a game changer or a differentiator for us, was Women Directors Conclave, which we do annually as an event, where last year we had gracious presence of Srimati Nirmala Sitharamanji, the finance minister of, or I say the active finance minister of our country today. And she spoke about need of platforms like Mentor My Board, the importance of mentoring for board leaders to be contributing effectively. And she also mentioned that training is not only needed by women, it's also needed by men. So the platform what we have created is a complete gender neutral platform, even though women directors is one of the focus. But platform talks about the directorship, because once you enter the boardroom, you're not a man or a woman, you are a director. So it's about skilling and upskilling on to you on that part. So we do, the platform is a subscription based platform. We do a lot of initiatives for members, where we create the experiential learning for them month on month. So every month we have a BTS, we call it Board Tattva series, where mentors come, they speak about the subject matter, on the topic. And then there is an experiential mock boardroom created, where they enter into the case studies and they role play those kind of instances, and where they are able to learn out of it. So what we're really talking of is learning by experience. It's not only a kind of a theoretical or a bookish learning, because at that level of directors, or people who have been very very senior, 20 years, 30 years, they sometimes feel the going to a traditional way of learning is not working. So I think these are the various initiatives what we have been taking, for our members. Independent Directors Summit comes in every week. I mean, as you said, podcast. Every Sunday we have a podcast at 11 a.m. where we interview, eminent personalities from Indian boardrooms. So yeah, that's all about. And what I believe is strongly keeping learning, your curve very high, learning curve very high, basically, because leaders who learn are leaders who grow.
Yeah. So, what is the most interesting, let's say, project, or the most interesting, let's say, I would say, ultimately we all are students, and we all are mentors. So some of the I would say students associated with Mentor My Board, what are some of the success stories that you would like to share, or one thing that you're proud of?
Great. I think two success stories I would surely like to mention here. Number one is a promoter, who has a construction chemical business, and when he had a vision, of getting the company listed on the exchange, he attended Boardroom Mastery as a program, which is 1 day certification program, where a complete 360-degree understanding of the boardrooms comes in, and how and why he should have the formal board structures, governance structures for him to grow. And after I think around 8 months or so, his company got listed. Through Mentor My Board, he has now got three independent directors who are contributing effectively, to his board. And they're not only kind of sitting there, but they are kind of getting being supportive to, or mentoring the promoters, guiding them, connecting them, network, because what independent directors bring into the company is the outside in perspective. So they are bringing those perspectives to him, and he always mentions one thing, that they were, I think, till now I was, driving alone, but now I know I have, the power with me of my board, which is, driving me to take my vision to the next level. So that's one, very very important success story which I feel. And the programs like Boardroom Mastery open up that vision and the mindset for promoters. So that's one. And 9th of March is our next Boardroom Mastery happening in Mumbai. So if somebody wants to join in, they can surely go to our website and check the details. That's one. Another is about the Women Directors Conclave. So when we created the conclave, the most important thing here is, this year first time we created the awards, for women directors. And one of the woman director, who is I think around 20, 21 years old. She runs her not-for-profit initiative. And when Smriti Irani came to the conclave, she was virtually present there. And Anisha spoke to her that I want to come and meet you, because the impact work what she's been creating. And immediately next day she's given an appointment by the minister. She goes there, and within a week's time, the notification to the effect of change comes in and gets circulated in 29 states. So I think this is something, the real impact and the success what I see.
Wow.
People come, attend mastery programs, get involved, they get those opportunities to speak up. And I think, these are the amazing opportunities or, initiatives what we have been creating now.
Wow. So, Divya, in your experience, we will also touch upon your the way you are, handling several leadership positions. Before we come to that, what are some of the blind spots or common mistakes which even leaders or people who are sitting in the boardroom they make, and they sometimes might be feeling, okay, maybe is this a mistake, is this an error, is it really causing let's say losses to the organization? It could be anything. So it would be great if you could address that.
So I think the most important, kind of challenge which corporates or the directors usually, kind of experience, and even the regulators are facing it, or observing it, is related party transactions. Because, I mean, for example, if I'm running a proprietorship company, my PAN number and my company's PAN number is going to be the same. So my money and my company's money is going to be the same. But the moment you are a private limited company, or the moment you are a public limited or a listed company, the money which comes in the company is not your money. You are distinct identity and your company is distinct identity. So how transparently you are keeping that relationship very, very professional, very, very separate. And again, here the disclosures, what directors are making it to the company, how the reporting is being done by the management, the senior management of the company. And I think this is where lots and lots of kind of governance failures do happen. I mean, whether you see the recent startup failures, or even see some big listed company failures, you will see the related party transactions are, or the greed, if I say. Because till one moment, you and your business, you're so attached to your business, because something else is driving you, like passion is driving you. But once the money is coming, the greed overtakes, the wrong practices overtake, the fast growth. I think that's the big challenge in startup ecosystem also today, that with that fast growth, people forget to kind of hold on to their ethical standards. And I think that's something, really I feel, is an area where we will have to work it out, in such a manner that we create those sound structures around. And अब structure तो बाहर कितना भी बना लो, but if it is not happening inside the minds of the promoters, things will not change. And therefore, when I interviewed one person, he said that howsoever you train independent directors or women directors, unless you work on the mindset of promoters and founders, you will not be able to bring that change in the corporate governance domain. And that's where I think the programs like Boardroom Mastery are playing an important role for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe I wanted to ask one more question, which I'm going to ask. But you know what? I was thinking there is no other word than this particular word I'm going to use comes to my mind when I'm going to address this question, and I'm sure you will understand it. It's when there are so many influential people, accomplished people, when they're sitting in one room and they are wanting to get into arrive at a decision. Often ego, that is ego, takes over, right? I
Hmm.
was just thinking how should I put this, but that's a fact, right?
Yeah.
Now, how important, for someone who is wanting to be in the board, who is wanting to contribute for the greater good, sometimes that takes over, and it stops you from seeing things from various lens. So what are your thoughts, suggestions, advice on managing at that level? So yeah, just wanted to hear you on that.
Little complex question, and I'll try to make it little simpler while replying to this. See, number one is, when we really talk of the corporate governance or corporate, boardrooms, the one and most important thing is the promoters have built that baby. I mean, built that organization starting
Mhm.
from scratch. So they definitely have, the emotions attached to it. They
Yeah.
definitely have, a lot of feelings attached to it. But when the independent directors who come from outside, they usually will not have the same empathy towards the organization, or they may not even have that kind of background of what's gone in to build this organization to this level. And I think that's where these ego clashes do happen, because promoters who have created the entire institution from their hard sweat and blood, they would want to hold on that power. And I tell you, I think this is also one of the biggest challenge which even regulators are observing today, especially when there is a god syndrome in the boardroom. So the
Yeah.
promoters,
And
yeah, the
also, please
promoters,
explain to God syndrome is slightly in depth, so our viewers, for our viewers,
I
please do
heard
that.
it somewhere. I'm not really recollecting,
Sure, sure,
but
sure.
I heard it somewhere. And I really found it very interesting that promoters who have been, as you said, the influencers, or already have seen there, been there, done there, uh, and then you suddenly go and try to teach them. So that's something which usually they will not accept. And I think you know. Even for example, in one of the recent corporate governance failure in a startup ecosystem, it's mentioned that what were the directors doing, right?
Hmm.
So this question
Hmm.
usually comes, especially in that kind of scenario. But when you talk of the ego, I think there are two ways to look at it, right?
Sure, sure.
If the founders and promoters are adaptable, they are with the learning mindset. The suggestions and inputs which come to them, they accept it, and try to improve on it. And only kind of areas where if the outside people or directors, or if I call independent directors, if they try to kind of misuse the powers which are there with them as directors. And I think there was one case where independent director had demanded some things, and the promoter. So I think all these
Yeah.
things, again, the ethical values come into picture here. So but usually, yeah, you're right, that ego is a difficult part to handle in the boardroom, and that's what the entire board dynamics is all about. So how do you
Yeah.
handle relationships effectively, right? Because you're not only having a relationship only with the chairman or a company secretary to whom you are dealing with, but you are kind of dealing with all the directors across. They may be your peer directors, they may be the promoters, founders, executive directors, or even senior management. So it's more about I think the human resource or human management perspective to that how do you manage those relationships at the board.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Divya, for sharing that, because you know, ultimately, we have, let's say, we have all the mentoring programs in place. We have, all the arms and ammunition in terms of knowledge and network, in place. But ultimately, it is also the leader's responsibility to be open-minded, be okay
Yeah.
if some suggestions comes in, because ultimately, uh, the final goal is that all of them are wanting a collective progress for the organization. So thank you, Divya, for sharing that. So Divya, now how are you managing so many responsibilities? In fact, I could have read one more page of the introduction or the writing that I have done, but I think you are co-chairing multiple initiatives. You are advocating multiple uh, on multiple platforms. So how do you find time, and how do you manage also personally, let's say, egos of various folks? I would love to know that also.
So I see here, there are again kind of two perspectives to it. One is the
Sure, sure, sure.
professional, one is the your professional journey, and another is your personal life. And I
Yeah.
always feel if you're not settled at your personal front, you definitely can't do many things on the professional front.
Hmm.
So for
Hmm.
me, I have been blessed with a wonderful mother-in-law, wonderful husband, and I have two lovely daughters. So my father-in-law. So I mean, everyone here, has a very very collaborative and supporting environment at home. You know, which
Hmm.
actually makes you ready to go out and fight in the world. So that's one part of it. Now when we really talk of the second perspective of the professional journey, so here I think and you said how do you manage, so I think Here you need to build a very, very strong team, again, which is a collaborative team, because both ways, whether it's personal or professional, you need those people around you who are your cheerleaders, who are there, who stand with you, what
Mhm.
come may. And I think
Yeah.
that makes things possible. Now again, I also kind of correlate this with a story, and which I always tell
Sure, sure.
even to my daughters and to a lot of people, that if the force comes from outside, the egg breaks, but if the force comes from inside, I think the life emerges. So
Yeah.
anything you do, if you put your heart to it, if you are doing it with full kind of commitment and dedication, I think all the things, entire universe around you starts working for it. So that's my
Mm.
experience, which I have always kind of seen. So
Yeah.
yeah, that all these things keep me motivated, and keep me engaged, and I'm able to do few things. And again, one more thing, which usually I would like to kind of through your platform give advice to a lot of women, especially balancing the roles between home, family, business, profession. A lot of times, the compromises do happen. But one thing, which I always say is, don't compromise on your personal space. You are the creator of your life, whether you are at home or you are in the outside world. So and don't kind of expect that everything should be perfect. Kahi imbalance hoga. And I know, when everyone says how many things you are able to do, and I know how many things I'm not able to do. But then
Yeah.
you have to overcome that, and see what all you can do and what all you are doing. So that's all.
Yeah. So how do you manage your own well-being or burnout, or sometimes there are too many things on the plate. So how have you crafted, or how have you designed your solutions around it?
Okay. So for me, I think spending time with the family is a stress buster. So when you have
Mhm.
too many things on the plate, definitely things will be there. Prioritizing is one important thing. And my lot of mentors, I'll talk about mentoring also.
Sure,
So my
sure,
lot of
sure.
mentors, do tell me, and I tell you, last almost 6 years, I'm continuously under mentoring with someone or the other, right? In
Yeah.
whatever ways I do it. So a lot of mentors tell me that, Divya, you have too many things on the platter. But I think it's good to have a platter full, and then you pick and choose what you like the most to do. So
Hmm.
be blessed if you have a platter full,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then manage it. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Divya, for sharing that. With the rise of new organizations, startups, often we notice that they, of course, are focused on finding their investors, finding their customers, and in that journey they spend 6, 7 months, and after a time they come to know, oh, my compliance. Where is my compliance? What to do? I'm in the middle of a legal challenge. Oh, now is it the time to create a co-founder agreement? Suddenly that takes over. Now, what advice, suggestions, inputs you have? Uh, be it startup founders, and most of the times, in my understanding, these are not sometimes not the young ones who are in their 20s. There are startup founders who are also in their 40s or 60s, for that matter. Somewhere they realize it after 1 year that okay, they have to work on these things. So what is your quick suggestion, advice for them?
Uh, yeah, so I think see, this is what problem we have been seeing for last 16 years of my practice journey. And I think if these problems exist, then only we exist. So
Yeah.
that's there. But now my advice to the founders, or my advice to this even startups, or the MSME owners or directors per se, who are running their businesses, the two most important things are there. Kind of when we talk of compliance, just see what the non-compliance can hit, right? So the cost of compliance will come to know only when there is a non-compliance. Now it's not that difficult to run the compliance, and I'll tell you this with
Sure,
my
sure.
case study. I'll tell you with this case study.
Please. Yeah.
I still remember, I think, almost 10 years back, yeah, almost 10 or 12 years back, when I had started my practice, and, maybe around 2-3 years, and that time there was a service tax, and the limit was around 10 lakhs or so. So the
Yeah.
moment you cross 9 lakhs, and so I spoke to my auditors, and I said that, can we create another company? I don't want to pay taxes, GST, service tax. Why should I pay on that? And one thing he told me is that, Divya, you will see the real growth when you kind of open up your mind to the compliances. Go and embrace those compliances. You have all the best experts in the world to guide you on those compliances, so don't be afraid of that. Number one. And I'll tell you, the moment I took that advice, I think, for the next 3-4 years the growth was absolutely multiple. Because what happens is, the bigger corporates, the moment you start avoiding compliances, people will start observing you as a person not, maintaining your highest ethical standards. So if
Yes.
you are not abiding, a law abiding citizen, how the other person is going to come and join hands with you, whether it is, a vendor, whether it is a your customer, or even when, you're dealing with regulators, for that matter. It becomes
Hmm.
very difficult for you to go and justify. So therefore compliance is something which has no substitute as such, if I tell you. And
Hmm.
definitely, there are experts, seek help. Now another point I'll, kind of give, kind of advice or a note, is that ensure that whatever your compliance is being done by your, kind of consultant, any consultant, it can be export import consultant, it can be, professionals like us, chartered accountants or company secretaries. They will do their job, but the ultimate accountability and ownership and responsibility is yours. You have to check what compliances are being done, what returns are being filed, and there are enough mechanisms and checks and balances to ensure that those compliances are done. And I'll tell you, there are almost, now 1100 to 1200 laws in India. And in director's responsibility statement, a director certifies that company has complied with all applicable laws, right?
Hmm.
So, when I really talk of the compliance, yes, for promoters and founders who really miss out and then remember it after a year, it really, can land you in problems. So the compliance or the mindset open to the governance and the compliance should start from a very baby steps. When you have formed a company, definitely somebody might have helped you to form a company. Why not you talk to that person, right? That, can you help us, also maintain, a lot of records for us. And instead of, kind of doing it after 5 years and then starting from formation, that okay, now we want to prepare the documentation from starting of the company, because now we are wanting our investments to come in our company, and we want to show our due diligence to our investors. Why not create that as a culture? And again, second point is also your employees, when they see the kind of structures and the mechanism, the SOPs, the policies, if those all things are there in the system, they also feel secured to work in that environment. So I think, yeah, I mean, in short, if I say, compliance has no substitute, and there are enough consultants, but it's just that the responsibility of the founders, promoters, to ensure that those things are done in time. So creating, the systems and the processes for that is something important.
Thank you, Divya, for sharing that. What are your observations of be it new organizations or slightly established organizations? Their love for valuation game has evolved multifolds in the last few years. Okay, and then how does one, you know, be ethical at the same time, drive the organization at the same time, do things in a way where you're actually growing versus focusing too much on, what can I do so that this valuation, grows. So what has what is your Hawkeye view on this, and what suggestions or things that come to you, and what advice you would have for them?
So, when I really talk of the valuation, see, businesses were there 30, 40 years back also. They were growing. I mean, I give example of Infosys a lot of times, when they came out, with the public issue, or even DMart for that matter, when they came out with the public issue, they didn't have too much of, glossy valuations. What they did is they allowed investors to build, create wealth on the lower valuation of the company. Now here, when we really talk of the valuations, I think, recent, incidences when we really see the IPOs coming in,
Yeah.
the yeah, the most important point here is also, I think the pressure which comes on the, promoters and founders from investors. I mean, I'll tell you one example because I also run a startup. I have, done enough of pitches where I, know what investors ask. uh,
Sure.
in
Sure.
2 or 3, kind of places, investors asked, "Oh, your business doesn't seem to be multi-growth, right?" I mean, definitely there is substance what we are doing. I mean, the growth may not come immediately, in first 5 years or 10 years, but then what they're looking at is your business doesn't have 5x or 10x growth in 1 or 2 years. So that's what even investors expect. Now, what happens is, if I'm put on the pressure that I have to grow 10x or I have to grow 20x, I would will, because the money has already hit in. And I'm telling you this mindset of the promoters, how the struggle inside, because I mean, that journey I'm also living. So I completely, kind of
Yeah.
relate.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's kind of a pressure on you that are you, doing your business just to bring, valuation for your investors, one level of investors, then next level of investors, then third level of investors, and then, you will be kind of, giving exit to one investor after another till you come out with the IPO. And IPO may, that's ultimate kind of a exit for all the investors usually in the startup ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's where the highest valuation goes and hits, when they are going public. And uh, I mean, markets do correct, the companies who have given abnormal, valuations. But then there are people, or there are, smaller shareholders who ultimately get stuck because investors have already moved out at a higher valuation. They've already made their money. The ultimate sufferers, and I think regulators, must, or regulators are, I don't know. But this is something which, kind of is a really matter of concern. So yeah, I mean, the challenge exists, Sagar, here, in India today, and we need to look into how do we collectively solve it. And that can, one thing I feel, or if I talk about how I look at, those things is, number one, how promoters, kind of are mentored and nurtured. See,
Hmm.
if, for example, if somebody is asking me, to do certain things which my conscience is not allowing me to do, right? You should not do that. But if still you are doing it because somebody else is telling you, I think then, these kind of failures do happen. Another thing is, the investors also, need to be very, very kind of genuine, when they're really demanding things from the, the companies and the startups. I think the failure after failure is happening, and then these again becomes the boardroom battle, because in boardrooms you have investor representative director sitting with you on board. So that's a tough call and tough situation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I just thought to hear your perspective, Divya, because you have been, you have been working with, seen many situations like this. So it's because people don't talk about. People just talk about, yeah, this startup has raised this fund. This startup has launched an IPO in 5 years. But what is happening on the back on the backyard
Yeah.
from an
Yeah.
investor lens? And no one will openly, let's say, make an unpopular statement for investors. No one, people don't do that. So that's
Yeah.
why I thought it's very, very important to, touch upon this aspect as well.
So I think one point here I'll just add on: the promoters and the founders should look at the strategic investors. They should not only look at the investors who are, aiming for only growth. So people
Hmm.
who are there with you, people who believe in your idea, people who are going to be with you, whether there is valuation, there is no valuation. So I think those kind of investors, are definitely hard to find, but you have to find those kind of investors who, will not only invest for the return but also will invest because your idea is genuine and that person feels this company has the scale to make.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Divya, for sharing that. Uh, uh, the pandemic happened recently, and a lot of digital transformation has happened. So, how has what's the a new trend on what do you observe when it comes to corporate governance in this digital transformed era? What are your thoughts there?
uh, I think today, when we really talk of corporate governance, few important pillars, of the governance comes up. is the number one pillar is the stakeholder relationship. Today in this era, it's very difficult to kind of build the strong relationship with all your stakeholders, and it's also easy also. I mean, there were time where annual reports, for holding one AGM, the companies used to spend crores of rupees, but now with digital space, a lot of money gets saved, paper gets saved. So that's one kind of transformation which I have been observing, with a lot of people going in completely digital e-voting mechanism, where you are
Yeah,
saving on those things. The most important part here is that even the board meetings, there are a lot of board meeting softwares which have come up, and MentorMy board has been collaborating with them also. Is because the complete automation of the board processes, you have everything, entire documentation in one of on your mobile app or on your iPad or on your laptop, and you are able to access those documents anywhere, everywhere. So there are kind of softwares which will give you real time update on the growth of a company. The dashboards are there for the company, the real time market link, that how is the company performing. So the complete transformation on these fronts have been really a game changer, and companies who are growing definitely will have to adapt to these if they have to continuously sustain that growth. Number one. Number two, today environment sustainability, the way BRSR reporting is mandated for 1,000 companies, it will come, for all the listed companies very soon. And the moment you are into, the BRSR kind of environment, which is, the sustainability reporting mechanism, where you're also showcasing that how, for example, I mean, I'll give you the very, relatable example, the CSR,
sure,
like,
sure.
spend CSR. पर वो पैसा उन्होंने जो खर्चा किया है, जो पैसा उन्होंने when they have given that money to a school or an institution, how that money is used, number one, and what impact that money has created. Like for example, they have given kind of a money to create the classroom, and or a digital classroom. How fast, how those remote students are able to access, how many students, how many kids who were not able to come to school have now access to education, right? So the impact what your money you're spending gets created is something which gets measured into BRSR. So I think all these recent trends in the governance space, and technology definitely is becoming a very very important part. And again, last part, I think, if I talk of on the digital transformation, is about the data privacy norms, the cyber security. The boardrooms have to be really vigilant, on these things, and that's where the role of directors also come in very very prominently there, because if there is a small threat, or which can lead to complete data hacking, the entire businesses can go down and crumble. So that's where how those top leaders sitting in the boardrooms are taking calls on the technology, the protecting the assets, whether they are digital assets, whether they are physical assets. And that's where the entire governance is going to see huge transformation.
Thank you, Divya, for sharing that. Uh, Divya, I think you have a very interesting, let's say, growth path and your career path, because you've been managing one CS firm and now mentor my board, and there are so many things happening. So, what was one of the most challenging situation that came to your life or your career, and how did you do you overcome that? And the reason why I'm asking you this question is that usually people in the leadership roles or people who are managing teams, sometimes it turns out to be a lonely journey, right? And then, as you rightly pointed earlier, that of course a good support system is important, you know and it's a privilege to have that support system, and it's good to know. But then there are people who might not be having a support system. So it would be great to know one of the challenging instances from your career, so that it gives them some light on this.
I think, if I talk about, some lows of my life, definitely there was, and as you said, lonely journey. So definitely entrepreneurship is a lonely journey, right? And I still remember, in 2000, around 14, 15, when I used to be in the office, and definitely for 14 years, I had a luxury of having my office and residence in the same building. So I mean, that's again, how do you balance your work life? Because I had two
Yeah,
daughters,
yeah, yeah.
I manage. So that's how, that structure was created. Now I saw that I was sitting, morning 8 o'clock in the office and night 12 o'clock I was in the office because I had too much of, work pressure. Team was not there. I was the person who was handling more than hundreds of clients at that time. Maybe one or two people team there. And I kind of realized that time, and I think that has been a complete transformation journey for me. Or even, the mentor my board got created after that. That was the initial thought that this is not something, what I have started my, entrepreneurship journey for. And I underwent through a mentoring process. After that, I appointed a mentor, I hired a mentor. And the role of a mentor, I'll tell you, that was, a complete, mindset shift. Because you feel that, okay, I'm the best person to do, and I can do this also, I can do that also, I can do that also. But the external person who comes and, sits across you and he tells you you're not supposed to do that. For example, I told you service tax, right? I mean, 2 days I used to spend in only calculating service tax. Mujhe kitna bharna hai. I used to sit with my accountant for 2 days. And that was kind of a realization that, boss, you're not supposed to calculate that. Somebody else can do it for you, right? So that mentoring process was complete transformation for me. And even, thinking about mentor my board, kind of got created out of that mentoring process when I realized that as entrepreneur, if I'm having, that kind of challenge, definitely every entrepreneur, goes through this cycle of the highs and lows. So how do you kind of create that mentoring culture? And being a company secretary, corporate governance was always, at my back. So that was, where mentor my board got created. So that's, the journey which I have experienced, that how it can really change your life. And from that day till today, it's been last, I think, almost 6 years or 7 years. I've been continuously under mentoring by someone or the other. So one mentoring ends and I, kind of enroll for somebody else. Or I have, now we are blessed to have wonderful advisory board with us, right? So there also we have, some amazing people who have been mentoring us. Whenever we want, they are available. So, that sounding board. And I tell, and I, as I also told you initially, that a lot of startups, don't reach out to people. They keep doing things their way. Definitely incubation centers, today have been, there to create that mentoring environment. But still, a lot of companies which come, they don't get incubated, right? So they still, kind of work as the traditional proprietorship or a partnership model. And then, they feel, okay, okay, I can, reach this much. But there has to be someone to unlock the potential that, oh, no, you can't reach here, you can reach there. So who is that person? Anyone. It can be by either someone from your family or your friends or your, organization. So identify that person. That can be, a complete game changer for you, I think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let me share. One interesting observation I made while you were addressing this, that the impact of mentoring on your life is so much that somewhere, I see the fulfillment of building mentor my board is, I think, because of course I understand the, of course there are a lot of technical aspects which gets covered while,
Correct.
uh, uh, the change makers and leaders who are part of the mentor my board process. But now it is very easy for me to relate where it comes from, because everything has a why. So yeah, that's a great learning for me in this conversation, Divya. And you're absolutely right. We need, there is everyone, needs a mentor or a coach to, to give an external perspective, because most of the times we are busy in firefighting, busy in our operations. And then of course there are friends and family, but they have their roles to play. They I think they cater to other human needs or psychological needs.
Right.
I think a professional definitely helps in all the aspects. Thank you, Divya. I think, I've been considering a lot on having I mean, though I'm also in a field where I do also constantly seek advice. But Divya, biggest win for me today in this podcast, and I'm sharing this publicly, that I'll be also onboarding a full-time mentor. So thank you, Divya, for enabling
Thank you.
that on my life. How to ask for help? Many people, as you rightly said, be it startups, because somewhere startups are also humans, corporate leaders are also humans. And the fundamental quality is how should I ask for help? I am in that stature now. If it's a corporate leader, and if it's a startup founder, oh, if I ask for help, then my vulnerabilities will come out. People will start
Correct.
judging me. So, Divya, if it would be great from your experience and your wisdom if you could share some of the simple steps to ask for help.
Yeah, point number one, in fact, I'll tell you the most important, powerful tool, before asking the external help, introspect,
Yeah,
where stand, where do you stand? What are the gaps? Do I really need any external help, or I enough am capable of doing it? Right. So, I mean, I have a very, a good habit, or I can say a strong habit of, scribbling. So I keep scribbling, every conversation, whatever happens with people, I, write a lot with myself, that this is what I'm supposed to do, this is what I'm not supposed to do, this is what, kind of drawing the mind maps and the charts, and so a lot of things. So that's one introspection. So once you decide, because I mean, I'm a good fan of Robin Sharma. So he talks of one thing, that the first step is awareness. Once you are aware as to what are the gaps, you will take actions. And once you take actions, the results will come. So if you take positive actions, results will come positive. So that's kind of a three-step formula. So if you are aware, yes, this is gap, this is where I seek help, because पता होना चाहिए कि help कहाँ चाहिए.
yeah,
Then you are completely lost and पता ही नहीं है, and then um, your problem is something else and you're trying to address something else, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
awareness is the first step. Once you do that, once you write on a piece of paper, then see the best people in the industry who are there, who can guide you. And I'll tell you why I'm saying this, because a lot of people times, when I tell companies to create their advisory board, they say, nee, that person, I don't think he'll ever come to me as my mentor or
Hmm.
my advisory board. That hesitation, because we keep our glass ceiling so limited,
Hmm.
that we know that
Hmm.
okay, we can't reach out there. And I'll tell you why I'm saying so. I mean, when I was in Bombay Stock Exchange, I worked for some time there. Um,
Wow.
I was at the lowest ladder. I was at a management training level. And Mr. Rajnikant Patel, who was the MD and CEO of Bombay Stock Exchange at that time, he was at the topmost ladder, right? And today he is on our advisory board. And, he is such a wonderful support to us. I mean, it was just that, crossing that threshold, asking for help, and he was there. And I never had imagined that he would say so open heartedly, yes. You know, uh, I mean, I didn't have to convince him. I didn't have to, kind of tell him. When I spoke to him, sir, we want you to be on our advisory board. And next day, the yes was in our inboxes. So so that's where you need to seek help, and you need to think that yes, it's possible, with a positive mindset. And again, as I said, आपको problem पता है, then you will find suitable people who can help you for solving that problem. So don't keep your limitations in mind. And number three is, once you get a mentor, once you get an expert to guide you and help you, I have always seen and I have always practiced is surrender to the mentor. So, a lot of times, even if we have someone to guide us, we keep doing things the way we want. A lot of times you have to come out of that zone and listen to the other person, what he's saying. Definitely evaluate the concept, the idea, the suggestion. But करना तो आपको ही है.
Yeah.
But lot of times, surrendering it to the universe, that yes, that person has come and doing it for our good, whether it is a criticism, accept it, and then work upon to improve it. That's, I think, more of a relationship which you create with mentors. And I'm really blessed to have some amazing people around me. Whether it is Amisha Bain, whether it is Nilesh Bhai, whether it is Ramnath sir, Sridhar sir, Sanjay ji. So I think blessed to have amazing people. And even when you're at home, I call my husband as my best critic. So he'll keep asking me the questions, that why you're doing this, why you're not doing this, why you are only doing this. So those kind of those whys, when people ask you, it keeps you kind of motivated to prove yourself and to prove others. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Thank you, Divya. I think we covered several aspects on we wanted to touch upon. So thank you for sharing it with examples, with cases, with your experiences. I think that made this conversation enriching. Before we end this conversation, would you like to share something, or as a closing remark, or anything that you strongly feel? Feel free to go ahead and express your thought.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sagar, for giving this opportunity, for me to kind of speak out on these issues. And I think this is the only platform where I have shared so many, of my vulnerabilities, openly, that how I have gone through, the ups and downs and all these things. So thank you so much for this. And I hope, it kind of, helps someone also going through, some kind of similar situations to come out and, seek help. Number one. Number two, I think, my real advice here will be to men, women both, especially, first I'll talk about women. uh, I think, the relationship is, very very important for you when you build up. And I mean, today I see, Palki Sharma. She keeps talking about women and why they drop out from the career. So I think that's where, you have to really cross, those thresholds. You have to kind of, create that ecosystem at home, so that you're going out and, kind of building up. And I'll tell you, a lot of times, I see girls today, they say we don't want our in-laws to be at home, we don't want them. So just imagine, they being your strongest support, and you're able to go out. And again, it's kind of a dual relationship. It has to be from both ways. So kind of relationship harmony is very very important, for anyone to succeed, for that matter. Then another thing is for men, when I really look at, especially, the young generation today, definitely, there has come a change where, earlier, boys never used to enter kitchen, and today they are, there to, kind of take care. And I know, if sometimes I'm reaching 10, my husband has already, kind of done some basic things, which are required. So you don't need to tell, those, men now, because they see their wives also, kind of equally working and contributing. But again, still, a lot of expectations come up, on both the sides. And a lot of times, it's taken that, okay, ye to aapko hi dekhna hai, kind of, so my kind of suggestion here to all the men will be, definitely, it's a dual responsibility. But accepting other person, as the person is, and being a kind of a, collaborator for both in the journey of growth is very very important. So, and I've seen you, Sagar, doing that, so kudos to you. And I think that support from both sides, it's not only, from male or female, but collectively, from both sides, has to be balanced. So if
Yeah.
that's taken care of, definitely you can go and fight in the outside world. That's outside world definitely is not something, very difficult to conquer.
Absolutely, Divya. You know what? I just share with the viewers a cue. In a home, you are a founder and a co-founder, and a home is not less than a mini organization. You have
True.
those heated arguments, you have those debates, and you care for each other. You are caring for greater good. The only thing in organizations is, of course, there is a formal structure, there are expectations, there are deliverables which are beyond emotions. There is an actual service that needs to be gone. But I think, use your home as a home ground to mix the to work on the softer elements that requires, to also adapt to the technical elements that work when you're being in the board, or in simply in be it any stage of the leadership. So
True.
thank you, Divya, for highlighting that, and I think that becomes a very very good closing remark, and I think that's wonderful. And that's really powerful. Thank you, Divya, and
Thank
thank
you.
you, viewers, for listening. I these conversations inspire me to keep this journey of bringing out the best leaders, in the industry, the best people who are really really are mission oriented, are hungry. When I speak to Divya in person, I know she has a hunger. Sorry, I'm using this, but she has a hunger of a 21-year-old. When I see, she's always trying to collaborate, trying to nurture, trying to share with the community. So really really inspiring. Thank you, viewers, for joining, and see you on the next podcast, which is tomorrow at 12:30 p.m. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Sagar, for this opportunity. And all the best to you in your journey.